Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to Archant Towers here on this Friday evening. I'm Michael Bailey. I'm with Paddy Davitt. We've just got back from Colney-ish. It was a little while ago now. And of course it's been a busy day today and a busy week so far as well. So we thought we'd go live. Normally we talk through the team news at Colney and look ahead to the game. Of course Norwich headed to Bristol City tomorrow. But I guess we should also really, and maybe mostly, talk about transfers and rumours and speculation, and of course deals that have been done too. So I will have my iPad fired up on Facebook. Get your questions, comments in. I sense there's a bit of fan atmosphere out there, and I'm sure we'll tap into that over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. But I guess get those in. I'll check them out. But Paddy, in the meantime, should we kick off with Alex Pritchard and where that's all happened? We spent, I think Daniel Farke obviously got to speak about it for the first time today, and it took him 15 minutes really to cover all the points he wanted to, and you covered all bases with him really.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, by that stage we knew it had gone through. We knew that was kind of the case yesterday, but obviously confirmed today. I think what was new today was quite clear. You know, this is a new structure, and the way this structure works in terms of transfers out, you know, it wasn't quite clearly Farke had the final say. Reading between the lines, I think it was Farke's call. He would have kept the guy, but unfortunately the new reality is it's a cooperative decision, and the final decision is by the board, and they've decided that the figure it had reached, wildly conflicting reports, but I think if you went around 11, you wouldn't be too far wrong, which was 6 million profit on what they paid, minus the sell-on clause to Tottenham. They deemed that to be a good piece of business for a guy, let's not underestimate it, who wanted to leave. He didn't want to play for Norwich anymore. He wanted to be in the Premier League, has done for some while. His quotes today from when he was unveiled by Huddersfield tell you that is the case. So what you do, you turn down the money, because obviously a lot of that angst I'm getting is a lot to do with the fee and why they let him go for that figure. But ultimately, you tell him he's staying here. What type of situation has Farke got to manage then? You know, you've got a player who doesn't want to be here. And we've seen plenty of examples. I'm not having a slight at Alex Pritchard, but there's been plenty of examples of players who've basically been told they're going nowhere, and then all hell breaks loose. 2 words, Diego Costa. So for me, ultimately, if the player doesn't want to be here and there's decent money on the table, then you have to take it. But I think I sense again the fan frustration is the soundbite which I put to the head coach today, that they were under no pressure to sell, and lo and behold, you know, 2 weeks into the window they've sold probably for me their best player. So again, that bleeds into where's the club going, what's the ambition, how deep is the financial hole, and none of that is positive. That's all negative currents, and you know, of course, then now that's been resolved, the next question is what happens to James Maddison. So it's almost a cyclical. Are we going to now embark on where's James Maddison going to end up? So, listen, I'm not a Norwich fan, but I can understand why there is a lot of unhappiness tonight, probably. But the reality is, you know, the deal's been done, and everybody's got to move on.
Yeah, there are a lot of unhappiness to a degree, and keep your messages coming in. We've got loads in here already. It's interesting that the frustration that has come out of that, as you touched on, and that's a difficult one, because had Norwich have waited until the end of the window, say to get top dollar, they have no chance of using any of the money they've then got in. So while some may think Norwich maybe went too soon, was there really any option? And it did appear that no one else was really after Alex Pritchard either. So there wasn't there didn't appear to be a potential for an auction necessarily. Because if someone was interested, they'd have come in now. They'd have come in when Huddersfield started bidding, surely.
Correct. Yeah, and ultimately, Huddersfield, I'm afraid to say it, you know, they're not a bigger club than Norwich, but they certainly have deeper pockets at the minute. Yeah. And they, you know, conceivably have basically said this is the take it or leave it offer. Don't try. I mean, by all accounts, Hoyle, as he showed in the way that they had to prize Webber out of the club. I don't think he's a naive operator, and if he's turned around and said to him, look, don't try and sit on this for 2.5 weeks and think we're going to raise the bid, that's on the table, take it or leave it. As you say, we're not 100% party to the full machinations, but it's quite clear because there's been no speculation whatsoever other than Huddersfield and Alex Pritchard. So that tells me there wasn't any other viable alternatives. So that means it's very difficult if you're the selling club and you're clearly financially in a situation where you need to consider every offer very seriously, that you can't hope to create an auction if there isn't an auction there to create. So what do you do? And as you rightly say, if you were to adopt that approach, and eventually he goes, but he goes so late in the window, can you do anything in terms of business in? It's a notoriously difficult month to do business anyway, and I think the more time they've got to try and do something. Again, Farker, I felt intimated that this will now allow them to maybe do one or two bits of business that they wouldn't have been able to do. By no stretch is he now going to see all of that money. That's obviously naive in the extreme, but if it allows them to do a few extra bits of business, then the more time the better, because these things always take time to get over the line. By all accounts, the Pritchard thing's been going on for 2 weeks, so it wasn't suddenly that Monday morning they got a bid and then here we are now Friday evening and it's done. That was 2 weeks in the offing, so the same principle applies. If Norwich are going to now target players, it might take a week or two to do anything.
John McKnight is worried. Fire sale going on? 3 question marks there from John. What else have we got here? James Hastings, who'd you guys use the 12 to 14 million pounds, maybe 11, I would say, James, from Pritchard on, or probably not 11 after chunks and what have you and the other stuff. They might not get to spend half of it, I guess. But you asked that of Daniel Farker. Although there's been a bit of chat about the right back Tyrone Mbue and maybe defensive reinforcements, it was pretty clear that with him and with Pritchard and Yannick both coming out, he needs goals and they need assists. Which
they did, to be fair, even before both Yannick and Pritchard left. That's really what's held them back. One game this season where they've scored more than 2 goals in the league. That's just 25, 6, 7 games in. That's really poor, really poor. And the only issue I have with that is of course the top end is where the values tend to be more inflated. So if they've only got finite resource, what type of quality, what type of market can they go and target? Because attacking players do, by definition, as you rightly say there, because they're the ones who score the goals and goals decide the game. So I think they've got a very difficult situation ahead now. I think it'd be more likely when we talk about attacking players, we're talking wide players. The lad at Kilmarnock's been heavily trailed. I could see that one getting done, because that's more or less in the sort of ballpark. If you're talking a million and change, then that's probably the market Norwich are in now. I don't think by any way that we're looking at 4, 5, 6 million pound players. It's just not going to happen.
I said James's one. Craig Brown, need to spend the money we've got for Pritchard, buy another striker and attacking midfielder. Tessa Higginbotham, or both maybe, or Bottom. Gutted Pritchard is gone. How can we stand a chance to get in the playoffs if we sell our best players? Which I think had a little conversation on Twitter with Paul McInnes today, sort of suggesting that disappointment on Farker's face, because it is there and you can see it all on the PinkUn YouTube channel and PinkUn.com, is probably from the fact that he maybe feels that any chance of getting anywhere near the top 6 goes with selling a player of Pritchard's quality, I guess.
It's gone, it's gone. And it wasn't a great chance, I didn't think, before then, because they've left themselves so much to do. But and that is, again, that's another pressure point, because effectively you're telling your fan base that we were trying our best, but it's not going to be good enough this season. And that's, in terms of ambition, there's not a great deal being shown there, so that's a very tough sell. But it almost feels at the minute that the financial reality are outweighing any hope of getting themselves up and upwardly mobile again. It feels increasingly like it's a stabilisation season, and it might take another one as well before they can actually start to raise their sights. And who wants to buy into that? Who wants to go into a season where the best you can hope for is top 10 or whatever? Particularly for Norwich fans who've been used to either fighting on top end of the table or at least fighting to stay in the division. This mediocre seam of objectives is not. It's not. Well, what fan wants to buy into that?
It's going to be fun when the season ticket prices are announced, isn't it? With what's widely considered the most expensive season tickets in the Championship as we stand. So it'll be a good story when that one breaks. What else have we got here? They're obviously. Craig Brown, Huddersfield should have given us a player in a swap deal in exchange for Pritchard. It's not fair that we had to allow him to leave, then get nothing in return, apart from the money, obviously. Obviously, the thing that's broken in the last few minutes is the story that Nelson Oliveira is subject of an £8 million bid, I think it was, from Derby, and a couple of you have already picked up on that as well. Stephen Noakes, Oliveira to Derby money is paramount these days for the club. MB, you said a long time in the Championship, looks a good bet right here. I can't remember when I said that, but there we go. I'm glad you're paying attention. And loads more other questions here about Nelson Oliveira too. Thoughts on alleged Derby bid for Nelson, and more of a similar neck. Michael Bailey's beard, he's still going strong, unlike my beard. Nelson is welcome to stop at my house in the Midlands if he needs an overnight stop to sort a deal with the sheep. How do you see this Nelson thing, Pad?
Yeah, I think there is something in it. But I mean, if Cameron Jerome isn't fit tomorrow, then surely he has to be in the squad, because I don't know who else. They've already lost Tribal, Wiltshire, not that he was pushing for an 11, but in terms of a squad option, and Pritchard obviously. So I don't see anything happening imminently, as in the next sort of 24, 48 hours, but by all accounts there is interest from Derby. And as that last poster you read out, I think that probably is the prevailing sentiment now. If there was an 8 million bid on the table plus add-ons, I think you poll 100 Norwich fans, I'd say the vast majority would say take it, because his productivity really, since he came back from those prolonged fitness issues, well, it's been non-existent. As he scored, I think he got 1 or 2, hasn't he? But no, he looks like an angry man. He doesn't look like a man who really wants to be here to me, and you can probably trace that back to the start of the season and the fallout from Fulham. It was papered over, but if it's not fitness issues, it's questions about his temperament. So if the money was good and it was on the table, I'd personally take it.
It's an interesting one, given that Derby wanted Cam in the summer as well. I think that was a roundabout, wasn't it? So they want one or the other. Well,
I think they're now looking at it a bit like Wolves. You're second in the table. This window could make or break your Premier League ambitions. A very wealthy owner there, I'm sure it's money speculate to accumulate, isn't it? If you spend a good few quid in January, and that's the difference. Oliveira, nobody, for everything I've just said there in a negative sense, that there is a player there, and there's a player who can score goals in quite large quantities in the Championship in the right team with the right service. That's the difference potentially for Derby going up. And then if they're in the Premier League, then it's cheap at half the price, isn't it? 8 million.
Indeed. Sam Besant, I know it's the January sales and all that, but with the latest rumour of Derby and for Nelson, are we going to spend to replace these players? I mean, it'll get to the point where they'll have to spend some money because they won't have any left, and they obviously want this tight squad. And again, Daniel mentioned that today, but there'll be a point at which they have to start bringing some bodies in. It already gets to the point where you look at the squad for tomorrow and you think, okay, you're a couple of players missing there. We'll have to start filling these gaps in from somewhere.
Yeah.
Simon Lee's not happy. Time the club was sorted out, we're a laughing stock. Mick Holland, I presume this is about Alex Pritchard. He wanted out, get a grip, we can go buy another gem. Well, that would be the positive outcome from it, most definitely. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Neil Austin, we are in danger of being very light on the ground with experience, which is an interesting point, isn't it? Because obviously they want a younger squad. That was one of the objectives really from the summer, wasn't it, Pad? And with that, you then probably do have to put a premium on the experienced players you do want to keep in the squad.
I mean, the concern, we go back just to Pritchard, is now the massive expectation on Maddison's shoulders now, because he is the leading light and has been, but was flagging. You could see that in his performance levels, because there was so much importance and influence placed on his shoulders. But as soon as Pritchard came back in, we saw the link up at Birmingham, we saw the link up for the winner against Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it? Millwall. He must have felt, as soon as Pritchard came back into the side, that was almost a release for him to a degree, and now all that expectancy is going to be back on his shoulders. And he's also, for a 21-year-old, he's going to have to deal inevitably with plenty of transfer speculation as well. That's my fear, that you're basically reliant now on a young man who's still in his first full season of professional football, week in, week out at this level. I suppose Wes comes back into the equation, but Wes's season to date has been kind of, cameos here and there. Do you now expect him to come in and play a leading role week in, week out? At his age, not sure. So yeah, I concur with that. I fear now that there's so many sort of potential issues within that squad of players that it's going to take some managing between now and the end of the season.
I think you reminded me of the tweet James Maddison put out with #wavelength, wasn't it, with him and Alex Pritchard after one of his goals in recent games. I think it probably was a Millwall game, to be honest, and he was clearly enjoying playing with Pritchard, and they clearly got on well together too. Warren Woodstock wants a Premier League striker on loan. It would be interesting to know how a loan would go down with some people. Katie Lee Patterson from Bristol City, I'd take him for sure, good player, and Bristol City have got a few good players, and Norwich are going to find out first hand on Saturday how good they're in. A curious situation, Bristol City, at the moment, but I think actually the way Daniel put it Colney today was interesting in that they've worked so hard to get where they are. They're probably at a point now where they want to make sure they arrest their slide, which, although it is 4 straight defeats, 2 have been against Premier League opposition away from home, 1 at Aston Villa and the other at home to Wolves. Yeah,
and funny if on that point I've spoken to Corey Smith, ex of the parish, about looking forward to playing in his old club. A lot of good things he said about Norwich. Really enjoyed his time here. He said some of his best days were in a Norwich shirt. Obviously didn't quite end as he probably would have wanted to. But what he did say about that, specifically about that run, is I think they played Wolves on the telly and it was a rip roarer and they just fell the wrong side. I think Ryan Bennett actually got the winner, didn't he, that night? And literally the day or two after, it was when they had to go to Villa and got whacked 5. But he said they'd had a lot of injuries during that period, and it was pretty much the same lads playing week in, day in, day out, as it was over the Christmas period. And we know how much emphasis Farker placed on the load, and we all remember the Burton and the 6 changes and what have you. But apparently Bristol didn't have that luxury. So I think there's mitigation for why they are now looking at, in terms of their form line, 4 defeats in a row, as you say, irrespective of 2 cup ties. I think it's a little bit of a misnomer to think the wheels have now come off, and I fear Norwich might find that out tomorrow.
Hooray. Mick Holland, we have too many midfielders. Get a grip. 1 player leaving makes no odds. Sam Walden, season tickets have to be reduced. There says a season ticket holder. David McKenzie, any chance of the boy from Peterborough who is scoring a shed load of goals this season? Our sports editor's a big Peterborough fan. He's busy waving his arms and shaking his head going no. So there you go.
I think McAntony wants about. I saw the Wigan manager doing some I think they play Peterborough this weekend, and he's basically saying that I think Peterborough are asking 5, 6, 7 million for that goal.
Well, Norwich got that. We're fine.
Yeah. But doesn't that underline the point that a League One striker, whether he's worth that or not, but that's the valuations they're talking about, just to turn it round to, yes, Norwich need attacking players, but with the budget they've got, what market can they go into? That's, for me, really now. There's been a lot of talk about the deficiencies in Norwich's recruitment in previous windows. Absolutely has to be spot on now. Webber and his team of recruitment, people, they can't put a foot wrong this window now because they don't have the finance to go and make mistakes, as happened in the past.
Craig Brown, if Derby want Oliveira, they should give us Vidra in a swap deal. I think Vidra scored quite a few goals this season, so unlikely, and Katie Lee doesn't even want Vidra. Sam Besants, don't panic, we have Marley Watkins up front, said no one ever. Bit harsh there. Paul Chesterton, West Ham looking to offload Hernandez.
PC.
I think you could probably pay for a week's wages there, couldn't we, with Pritchard money? That would get Hernandez in. Stephen Trivet, can they chuck in Chris Martin? Bring back Chris Martin, says Craig Brown. This is, of course, if Oliveira goes to Derby.
Was he playing?
Probably not. I don't know if he'd fit into the model. What else have we got here? Stephen Noakes, tight squad equals wage bill down. It's all about money, which is, I think, how a lot of Norwich fans feel about it. And what else? Connor Washington, says Jezalo, get Connor Washington in as another Peterborough ex-Peterborough face. David John Bell, any news on Stephen Naismith? Would be nice to get him out of the club. That's a nice sentiment.
Merry Christmas.
Off you go, Stephen. It does seem like that is going to happen. As far as I've heard, his family are back in Scotland now. He's probably up in Scotland himself. But Hearts were the last club to be linked, and Daniel came up with a line saying, actually Daniel was kind of like, if he hung around, it'd be quite good, and actually I kind of need him now that Yannick and Alex Pritchard are gone, which is the irony of the whole thing.
Ultimately they have a number 10 on the books, and he's now going out the door, so Yeah, not sure that decision shouldn't be revisited, but because are you going to find a better number 10 than Stephen Naismith if you could get a tune out of Stephen Naismith? The reality is you probably wouldn't, but I think that's a long way down the road now to being resolved. Yeah, and it looks like Scotland will be his destination.
Craig Brown asking about Miley Watkins. He was a free agent, I believe, in the summer. I don't think they paid a fee in the end, did they? Stuart Woyth, I hope that's right. We are doomed. That's exciting. James Robert Seago reckons Jerome has retired. There's some funny stuff on here. It's a good one. It's gallows humour, I think. So there we go. And what else have we got here?
Well, that was Matt Jarvis.
Well, yeah, that as well. Martin Crane, how about Bradley Johnson being included in an Oliveira deal? Well, why not? If you can't get Chris Martin back, get Bradley Johnson back. I guess team news is probably the one thing we haven't touched on, and injuries. I think the bad news is Tom Tribble, who does seem to have a knack of picking up ill-timed injuries. He's got a back problem, so he'll miss tomorrow, won't he? Jerome too soon for him, but other than that, Stiepermann back in a positive.
Obviously if Tribble wasn't available, then you would immediately think Harrison Reed, but by all accounts Harrison Reed isn't really back in full training with the hip problem he suffered at Burton, but needs must he will have to travel, but he doesn't sound anywhere near fit, but that's the situation they're in now. Trying to think now. Oliveira is available, Stiepermann's available. No Jerome, possibly for Chelsea, I think Farker said.
Harrison Reed, did you say Harrison?
Yeah, we just touched on him.
So I was paying attention.
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Reading the questions, but I don't know. I've just done a formation graphic. I think now if there's only Tete in terms of the holder, then I'm not sure you can play the two now. So maybe the 3-4-3 again, retain the Chelsea system. At least that allows you to have the three centre-backs, the two wing-backs. And it's just how you mix it around probably Oliveira. On that point, though, somebody did, I think, quite pertinently point out to me on Twitter, no Tribble, no Reed. Probably could have kept Ben Godfrey here until the end of January and then decided what you were going to do with him. Not that, with hindsight, fair enough, but I'm certain that he could have come into his thoughts if he was still in the building.
Yeah, it could have been in for this window, I suppose, and then loaned him back to Shrewsbury.
Yeah,
wouldn't have caused any issues anywhere else. Robin Collins, any explanation on the Yannick departure? Good player, and we need him? ? Yeah, Daniel did. I mean, he said he was brilliant in some ways, and then kind of rattled off his stats that made him think that maybe he didn't think he was that brilliant in terms of on the pitch.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, good lad, but not really done it, has he? And he's had 20 odd games. You know, he's not grasped it like Maddison, for example, and you would say Miley Watkins is in the exact same category. But no, I've never had the sense from day one that he's really a player that Farker would warm to. If he had a blank sheet of paper and he wanted his strongest 11, I don't think Wiltshire is in it.
Craig Brown, keep Jamal Lewis in the team at left back, don't pick Stiepermann. I mean, the interesting thing about Lewis's emergence is it might allow Stiepermann to play in a position that he's played more regularly once he's fit. We will of course see, and I think that might be it. Or Nick Deal, do you think Cantwell may be given an opportunity to step up as a direct replacement for Pritchard? Possibly. What we do know is that the under-18s are playing tonight in the FA Youth Cup against Derby, coincidentally. I wonder if Nelson will be watching. Hope not, because he should be in Bristol. And final question from Tom Parsley, fresh from the PinkUn Show. Which services will you be stopping at tomorrow? Big proper question, Pad.
You're the navigator.
I'm not sure that's true. That's a good question.
Any suggestions?
Is it M4?
Yeah.
Reading? Well, South Mims. This is golden stuff. This is why you're all watching.
Yeah. Say again?
Take a packet of sandwiches, Chris Layton.
No.
Take your own sandwiches.
No.
That's no fun. Imagine that.
No. South Mims, maybe.
South Mims, there we go. If you're at South Mims at around the time we're there, then come and say hello. I think we're going to wrap this up, but thank you so much for getting your questions in. We really appreciate it. We'll of course be doing these throughout the transfer window, which is shaping up to be quite a lively one, Pad.
Is it not over yet?
No, mate, we're not even halfway through yet.
Can't wait.
We're off to Bristol. Me and Paddy are on Twitter, of course. Dave Freezer will be coming with us tomorrow, so give us a follow. Check out pinkun.com. You can follow all of the action, reaction and build-up to it. Head to Norwich City against Bristol City tomorrow, and of course pinkun.com for updates on the FA Youth Cup tie at home to Derby as well. Till then, thanks Pad. Thanks everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.